about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I actually have had a few customers in since opening, in the hour since I opened. There have been Mondays, even in the summer, where that is not the case within the first hour of opening. So it's not that I 100% think the day is going to be dead, but I have about 6 boxes to unpack. Um, Maybe a dozen new books out tomorrow. Maybe I'm wrong, and there's a bunch of like single volumes that I miscounted that I only got one of, that will bring that number up. But there's not tons to do for tomorrow. I wanted to take a day where I didn't do any pricing. I did a whole bunch of pricing yesterday. I did a whole bunch of pricing every day last week, and I just wanted to breathe from it. We cleared, as I said in the live stream yesterday, we cleared some space in the boxes because we sold some stuff, but I filled that space up with the stuff that I priced yesterday. So I want to give it some time before I fill those boxes up again. And I really feel like my live streams have been slipping. I've been doing live streams, maybe there have been a couple that have been like 10 minutes long, and I wanted to do one that was like a little bit more sustained, a little bit more of a longer subject matter. So I decided that I had already wanted to talk about this book, Plain Jane and the Mermaids, for a while. I talked about this book numerous times. We've restocked it numerous times since we got it, but I wanted to discuss why we keep restocking it, why I believe it's so successful, and a lot of things that I think really pertain to the market as it is versus the market as people wish it was. And then I realized that a lot of those things also really go with Ash's Cabin by Jen Wang as well, that this is also very much a book that truly defines the way the market is now. Not It's not one of those huge hits. It's not Heartstopper or a Raina Telgemeier book that is just like exploded. Or even both of these creators have had books that were bigger, that were huge, that were like bestsellers right away and things like that. And that is also not a good way to like look at. I see it all the time. You see it constantly in what we call the comic press. You see this insistence on best-selling and award-winning and tremendous. Like this is the one people voted for. This is the people that was incredible, and you see it in like comic press a lot. You see it in a lot of different comic media and things like that. But it's much worse. It's worse. It's much more prevalent and pushy in the YA market, in the young adult, middle grade, and any of those markets. A huge part of the push is everyone's reading this because kids read what everyone else has read. Not all the kids. There's tons of outlier kids, but even the outlier kids will give a thing that everyone's enjoying, most of them, a look just to see. So that's a huge push to sell something to middle grade readers and young readers, is that everyone's reading this. This is the super popular thing. And it creates a loop in which Dogman and Raina Telgemeier books and Babysitter's Club books are constantly the best-selling books over and over. And then when something breaks in there, when something makes it through, it also will usually end up having a cycle of being New Girl. Wonderful book. I love that book. Cassandra Kalin's coming of age book that came out just this summer. I'm not including it in our discussion because our discussion is not about these books. We're going to get to that in a second. But Cassandra Kalin's book just made New York Times bestseller. Let's go find it. I know we just restocked it. Right over here. New Girl by Cassandra Kalin. Yeah, New Girl by Cassandra Kalin. Just made the New York Times bestseller list. This is a tremendous book. You've heard me talk about it. It's just a really well-made book. The art is fantastic. The character design is great. The pacing and story are all well done. But it is a YA book. It is a book made for a specific age demographic, written in a specific style, in a specific way that fits what we call YA. What that is exactly is a little bit difficult, but the point is shorter chapters, a central theme that we never really deviate from, even if we add layers or B plots, all sorts of stuff that, while both these books contain that, While both these books fit into the YA category, they actually go much farther than it and therefore become truly all age books. Now, when I say all age, what I mean is, and I apologize for not using the medium that I love, comics, to explain this, but movies just work much better. All age is The Incredibles. It's a Studio Ghibli film, Spirited Away, Nausicaa. It's mature ideas, mature thought into a very simple, straightforward story that a younger person can follow, but with a world underneath it, with reference and character development and growth that a more mature viewer can also enjoy. That makes something all age. So Plain Jane and the Mermaids and Ash's Cabin both have that in spades. It's one of the great beauties of comic books, is that comic books, because information is so layered and encoded, they can do that. They can have little gestures and little things that the characters exchange that a younger audience doesn't necessarily get, doesn't even need to get. And it still works. The big example of this, of course, was when Marvel Comics exploded in the 60s, when we had the Marvel era. Stan Lee and definitely Steve Ditko, possibly Jack Kirby, very much understood that this college-age market wanted the comics to feel kind of like the comics they grew up reading as children 10 years ago, but with a more social conscious, a more set in the moment that they were living kind of story, kind of characters. And they I wouldn't say they did an amazing job of it, but they did their best to do that. Nowadays, the Jack Kirby's, the legendary people working in comics. Here's the thing. This is like so weird to say. Jack Kirby, if we're talking about pure cartooning skill, ability to draw, render comic books effectively and amazingly, Jack Kirby was nowhere near the top creator in the 60s, because Harvey Kurtzman is still going strong at Mad, along with Wally Wood and well, Wally Wood's not at Mad. Mad doesn't exist yet, but different magazines. Will Eisner is still out there doing all sorts of different work. You've got Prince Valiant coming out, I believe, still. There are as qualified as, I mean, then there's just people who worked in the milieu of the regular superhero comics as well, who were maybe technically better. So when I say the Jack Kirby's, I'm not saying the greatest people working. I'm saying the people who can make this stuff. They know how to sell it. They know how to package it so that you get the story that you're looking for when you pick up their books. So Vera Borsogel and Jen Wang are exactly those people. Vera Borsogel and Jen Wang are creators who know what they're doing. They are super professional in how they deliver their story and their books. They are exceptionally talented at breaking down the different parts of the stories in the different styles while keeping the books consistent. And it's a work like that that really allows a reader to get lost in the book. That's a big part of being all age. Big part of something being all age, as I said in examples for movies like The Incredibles or Spirited Away, a big part of that is telling the story in such a way that an adult viewer, an older viewer, can accept some of the more childish things because it's fairy tale-like or it's dream-like. Again, in a comic book, a lot of that is done with the colors. A lot of that is done with how you paint your scene, how realistic your characters are versus how colorful they are. And they both chosen very different paths, but both make them, this becomes sort of ethereal and this is very cartoony. And both of those allow an older reader to go, oh, this is fun. We're just having fun here. So the genius that is happening is not just that they're telling a great story and having fun, but they're also encoding that story in a way that you, the reader, can get into it at very different ages. I will tell you, every member of my family has read both these books. My son just read this one, and it's amazing because my son is 11. My daughters are teenagers, 15 and 17. My wife and I are in our 40s. We all had different reads on these books. My 17-year-old liked it. My 15-year-old not so much. My wife hated it. My 15-year-old, I should say, actually loved the art and the beauty. She wasn't so into the story. She didn't really care because she was just how beautiful it was drawn. And my 11-year-old was totally like transfixed and captured by it because he doesn't see the mistakes the character makes as mistakes the character makes. He sees them as things that happen because he's not thinking what he would do, how he would do this. He's following the story, which I think makes a difference. Same with this one. We all love this one, but this one is very much, as I said, laid out with the cartoony colors, the way it's done to be a fairy tale. It's just an adventure story that you read, and we're all in for the ride. That's the sort of thing that I think right now is where comics is poised. Comics is making exceptional stuff like that. You can get stuff like that from DC and Marvel, stuff that your average superhero fan can read and enjoy, and it's fun and it's got excitement and adventure, but it's also a little bit more happening there. You can get that from all the major publishers, but those aren't necessarily the books that are the best sellers, that are the big names, that are the ones that your friends are telling you they're really enjoying, because maybe your friends aren't reading books for that reason. Maybe your friends love Marvel continuity and want to read what happens to their favorite characters. So then telling you, oh, well, this new run on Daredevil's perfect for them. But my main point is that if we look at the big successes of the kids market, the Babysitter's Club books, the Dogman books, the Investigator series, Amulet, Bone, all of those books are books that are made on such a level that a few of those I would definitely, Dogman especially, an adult reading it has to be like, well, I have to look at it like I'm reading like a kid. You can't necessarily read them as an adult. They're not necessarily all age books, but they are made so that an adult can really appreciate what they're seeing. The discourse, the conversations and back and forths and little asides that I've had with parents on their thoughts of Dogman versus Captain Underpants, who, they've looked in both. They don't really read them, but they're like, oh yeah, I like Dogman a lot more. It's so much more. Either they'll say it's more creative, either they'll say it's more thoughtful, they'll say it's less poopy, but all those things are, all of those things are because of how he wanted to make the books. He wanted those books to feel that way. He wanted Captain Underpants to be a little transgressive, because it's for a slightly older audience, where you're trying to get them on you, whatever. I'm not going to get into dissecting every single book that we're talking about. But anyway, right now I think that comics is at a really wonderful time where you can find all sorts of things. But if you don't know where to start, you don't know what you like, things like this are great. You want to look for standalone graphic novels. Tons of companies do it, but First Second is a great company to look at. First Second really straddles the line between young adult and all age. They're about to take all their grown-up books. They're books that were never meant to be young adult, and put them in a new company, 23rd Street Books. So that will help delineate for you a little bit. But this one, Summer, Roaming by the Tamakis, that's them. Well, Roaming is Drawn and Quarterly, but this one, Summer, is them. Tons of other books that really fit this all-age vibe. They're really enjoyable reads, and I can't do more than enough to recommend. I honestly thought that this topic on YouTube was going to get enough people to stay on while I was talking to keep them popped in, but obviously that didn't happen. So I can't just stand here talking to myself for much longer. So I just want to say, if you're watching it later, if you haven't read these books, definitely recommended for almost any reader. Hey, Mark just joined us, so we'll go a little longer. Mark, I'm just talking about how these are really great all-age books. You watch a lot of the live streams, so you've seen me discuss both these books. But Plain Jane and the Mermaids by Vera Borsogel and Jen Wang's Ash's Cabin, both just tremendous all-age books that anyone can read and get something out of. Again, a lot of that is in how they choose to tell the story, so that it feels like a story. This is getting the heater to work. Little oven. I just really think that there's this weird, I guess what I'm really trying to say is there's this weird thing. You probably come across it a little bit less where you live, because I think your area, I think the whole Franco-Belgian area is very different because of Asterix and Tintin and Lucky Luke and Blueberry and all that stuff that's been part of your culture forever, whereas American culture especially, and even I would say a lot of world culture, comic books are instantly associated with the superheroes, or in some places like Italy with the really auteur and crazy. So, but what people need to remember is that when you go to a movie, most of us, when we go to a movie, we don't go looking for something that's new with an actor we like. We don't necessarily go looking for something that's the next book or movie in a series. We just look at what we might like. Oh, a Western. Oh, a Western by this director. Oh, and it's unfortunate we don't do that with comic books. We don't go, oh, well, what am I looking for? I guess I'm looking for a horror book. I have that all the time. And I go, okay, well, what kind of horror do you like? And they'll start listing all these various horror comics that they read. And I'm like, okay, but rank them? Like, which one did you like more? Which, and you'll usually come out, just like if you did it with movies, that there's a certain kind, there's a certain style, like more, or they like any kind of horror. They love horror, any kind of crime, any kind of, and they're open to anything. But it needs to be thought about for a second. And so many people come into comics and they look at, let's say, a book like this, which I was like, this is probably our bestseller of the summer, definitely up there almost as a bestseller of the year. And I say that to them and they go, oh, and then a parent will pick it up, they'll look through it, and they'll go, oh, this looks good. And that's it. You want to read this? And I'm like, you should read it. It looks good. And they'll say, I'm like, do you watch Studio Ghibli films? Spirited Away? And they go, yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, look, America has that too, or had that too. It mostly is online. There's definitely a much wider range of comics, but it's about uh, what comes to mind. I don't know the proper term for this for some reason. What comes into your head as soon as I say comic books to somebody, or I say comics, is not Snoopy or Garfield or Dilbert for most people. It's Spider-Man, it's Superman. I don't know what it is in Dutch comics, what people think, but I would imagine it's Tintin, Moomin. I don't know. I'm not positive, but like I don't think I don't think it's going to be the same. If you say superheroes, I imagine that we're all going to have basically the same. What I love about these books, though, is that they're just engaging stories told in comic form. They're not genre specific. This is obviously a fantasy adventure, and this is obviously a slice of life, man versus nature kind of thing. But they're just stories, and people constantly say to me like, but I don't know if I'll like it. Well, you don't know if you're gonna like anything. So I said to someone once who I've known for years, and they said that, and they were like, well, I do. I said, I'm gonna turn a TV show on. Odds are I've seen ads for it. I know who's in it. I'm probably gonna like it. And I just I kind of was stunned, and I was like, but you don't know you're gonna like the ending. You don't know by the end of the season you're gonna keep watching it. It could do stupid things. It could say, well, no. I mean, like if it's this guy running, I'm like, okay, so that's true of comics too. If I know this person's making it, if I know that person's making it, I'll like it. I'm aware of it. Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Tintin, Lucky Luke, the Marsupial, yeah, Smurfs. Yeah, I guess it's definitely generational. I think if you asked a 17-year-old here in America comics, there's a good chance they would say Spider-Man. But if you said graphic novel, I imagine the same people would go like, oh, like Smile? So Mouse at the age of 17 or 18. I see that a lot. It's a very interesting. It's also about it's like any research gathering thing. It's about what questions you ask. If you ask people like, what do people associate with comic books? What do people associate with graphic novels? What do they associate with the word comics? The word comic book? It's all different, I'm sure, but I'm sure it's also generational. Anyway. Like I said, I was really wrapping up when you joined us, Mark, because I did go on 15 minutes about why I think these books are so wonderful, and I don't think I can really stretch that out much longer. I could talk about other things, but I was really hoping to make this a condensed single topic live stream. I will point out that I posted on our social media yesterday about the holidays. I haven't yet updated our Google Calendar or anything like that, but we are going to be closed many days in October. Most holidays, don't apologize, dude. It's fine. Most holidays this year are Wednesday, Thursday, straight into the Sabbath. So we'll be closed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, at least 3 days, at least 3 weeks of the month. Maybe more days. There's a whole travel situation that I have to make sense of that I may just we may be shut down for like half of October. So keep that in mind when you're making your orders or looking for things on our website. And until tomorrow, when we look at all the new books I'm about to unpack, remember, damn it, babies, you got to be kind.